everyone, and welcome to the channel. I'll be kind of taking you guys along just to give you a little bit of an informational on pallets and their uses, as well as a few different identifying marks to look for. Well, kind of scrounging around and picking out one or two of those that you'd like to maybe play around with doing a few different pallet wood projects. So here's just kind of a little bit of a informational for you, just so you know that you're getting one that is safe and making sure that you're getting ones that'll work for the projects that you're looking to use them for. So to give just a little bit of information, one of the first things you want to look for on the pallets that you're looking at getting is a similar stamp, just like this one. So the two main things you want to look for is this side of the stamp and this side. This side right here has the logo for IPPC, which looks for International Plant Protection Convention. What this means is that your National Forestry Service of the country of origin has actually safely procured this wood, and you know that it was actually taken from a live tree and produced into the wood that you are looking to use further into your projects. Now what I mean by this is that this is something that the National Forestry Service for Mexico, for Great Britain, or a variety of other ones, which is indicated on this side of the stamp, will have procured the wood properly, and that this will not have been reused from some other pallet or from some other different company that was getting rid of waste wood, which is a possibility with pallet wood to begin with as well, and something you want to look out for. Now, referring to this side, on the top here, you'll see two letters initialing what country of origin this came from. This one, kind of hard to see, is MX, which stands for Mexico. Underneath that, you'll see the letters HT. This is heat treated wood. That's what that stands for. The ones you want to look out for is MB. MB is your chemically treated wood. Now, chemically treated wood was outlawed in 2010 and can no longer be manufactured. There's a caveat to that. The MB, real quick, also stands for methyl bromide, or bromide. That chemical helps to kill any kind of insects that may have bored into the wood and anything that they may pass along going from border to border. Heat treating processes, as well as KD for kiln dried, will kill any of those insects that may have tried to live in the wood even after it was cut. So they'll cut the wood, and then they will go through the process of drying to a certain temperature that kills any insects that could have been left in the wood that can come over and cause a great deal of mischief and problems once they get into our areas for any kind of local flora or any kind of wood that's around here, trees, anything like that. One insect from one part of the world going to another part of the world can be an absolute detriment in that ecosystem. So that's the reason why the Forestry Services and a variety of international companies, such as the International Plant Protection Convention, was produced, so that way we would make sure that any one of those little biomes that are parts of the world would remain contained in them, as well as we safely source wood from those areas, and we don't end up cross-contaminating any of those sources. Some of the identifying factors that you want to look for when procuring any kind of pallet wood is just to look at the condition of it. This wood, for instance, a lot of them have date stamps on them. This one doesn't actually have one currently, but a lot of the time you'll see the stamp letting you know the information that I've already showed you, but somewhere around this side of the pallet you'll see a date stamp on it. This one, for instance. So this comes from the Boston Brewing Company, or BBC for short, and it was done on 4 of the year 21. And this is their little emblem for the Forestry Service, showing that this was a safely procured and also properly transported pallet. This one, for instance, is another date stamp. So you can see here, 6/2 of 21 was when this was produced. And the spray paint on the end of it is perfectly fine, shows that it's gone through the process, but if the entire pallet is blue, that means that it has been probably chemically treated, as well as it is also rented by the local company that you may be getting the pallets from. So always make sure to check with whoever you're getting pallets from, whether it be like a city market, Kroger, Walmart, or any of those, that they know that you're taking them. Because if you take the blue pallets and they're paying for them, they'll track you down, and a lot of times you'll get a ticket, or you'll have a knock on the door from the cops asking for that property back that you have stolen. So just make sure who you're getting the pallets from and that you have asked politely, and that you're getting the proper ones that will also not be harmful for you. Because planing, sanding, and cutting any of those blue pallets is a detriment to your health. And that is why people say that pallet wood is so bad for you, because they're used to people cutting and using those blue pallets or the MB pallets for the methyl bromide or bromide. So just a couple side notes there to give you a couple ideas. We'll kind of go through showing a few different images and some pictures of some of these. So first and foremost, just some of the things you want to look for when you are going out to get pallets is to always make sure to check for the stamp. See which country of origin it comes from. That'll give you a designation of what type of wood you're working with. TH for Thailand actually uses the main procurement of wood that they use is rubber trees, and the rubber wood is actually a hardwood, and that was my cutting board video. That was a phenomenal type of wood, and it's really great to work with. And if you're ever able to find those pallets, make sure to remember who exactly you're getting those from, because it is a great source of rubber wood. And that is one of the main things they also use for around the Philippines, Thailand, and around those areas. It's just one of the easiest trees for them to grow, almost like a bamboo. And there is a few bamboo pallets. They're kind of scarce and very hard to find depending on where you look. So that is one thing you can also keep an eye out for. I do not have any of the identifying stamps or anything for it, but I have heard that they do exist, which would be awesome to be able to get some long shoots of bamboo to kind of work with and play around with. Check the stamp, make sure that it says heat treated or that it says KD for kiln dried. And then that way you know exactly that this has gone through a process that you can go cutting on it or not having any issues. You can cut and work with chemically treated wood. It is highly recommended to use gloves while handling it. Any of the sawdust getting into your pores can cause irritation. It can cause people to have breakouts. It can cause them to have all sorts of different kinds of things happen to their skin type depending on how sensitive they are to it. And it's one of those situations that's very scary because you don't know exactly how much your body may react negative to something until it actually is exposed to it. So going through a chemical treated pallet just because it's what's there, you just want to try a project, it could be very well a good idea trying to go for that process, but just make sure to protect yourself. If it's the only pallets available to you and you at least want to try a few projects for your own personal use, you are more than able to do that without any laws being broken at all. I know in California they're a bit more strict in that regard, but you are still able to find pallet wood and you are still able to produce, create, and sell those products. There are just a few different companies and organizations that may post like, we need to see proof of what pallets you used, making sure that you have checked for your stamps. A lot of my projects, like some shelves I make and stuff, I actually kind of proudly leave this up so that way if anyone does have any issues with it, it is plain as day right in front of their face. And it also just kind of looks cool if you're a little bit more not knowing of exactly what it says, but it does plainly say that this is safe to use and that there's no issues with it. And the ability to see the date stamp is awesome because this also indicates that, like I said, it is illegal for anyone to continue using chemically treated wood or to produce pallets unless it's through a few different private organizations that spray paint their pallets completely blue or completely red. It is the entire ones. I know you've seen them if you looked around with pallets or you've even driven behind a Walmart. There are stacks and stacks of those pallets, which, like I said, are rented and temporarily owned by Walmart or any of the other facilities they're in. So just make sure to always ask and try to avoid those ones because chemically treated wood is not fun to use. And a lot of those are transported back and forth so much that they are repaired. So a lot of times you have a half broken down pallet that has a bunch of half broken little like stringer bits like these that are all cut off here and haphazardly nailed together over there, splitting the wood and just making it very hard to work with and very hard to pull apart, or you're just getting ready to destroy some blades to even use it. So it'd be my suggestion, if this is your first time going around and kind of dipping your toes into the water for working with pallets, to just look for some plain Jane pallets. Even if they have a little bit more tarnishment or a little bit more work, that's fine, but just make sure that it is after 2010 that it was produced. If it is really worn, kind of looks like old barn wood, more than likely that isn't something you want to touch, that isn't something you want to deal with. If you have the ability to know too where you're getting it from, such as if you did have a chemical plant, the pallet might say HT on it, but if you know that this pallet transported the chemicals that went to the plant, more than likely there's a good chance that any one of those containers could have spilled a little bit of that and contaminated the pallet, thus making this null and void at that point. So just make sure where you're procuring your pallets and what they may have been transporting before actually going into delving into cutting them apart. If you just drive around town and just start grabbing any pallet you see without actually paying attention to these, you could put yourself or others at risk depending on what you yourself create or what you are actually selling that other people might have for, you know, their kids playing around on as some playground equipment or something that you may have created. And it is a great project, but you're actually putting out there something that they could get slivers and splinters from that could have been some kind of horrible chemical that they used for even just like the newspaper or a couple other different companies out there that do film or all sorts of matter of things and chemicals that should not touch the skin, should not go anywhere near the face, and you may have a 2 or 3 year old playing in a playhouse that looks amazing that you may have built, but there's a good chance they could either bite on it, lick it, or just get splinters from it that could also infect them and cause issues. So this is where you want to be very cautious of what you're doing and very cautious of what you're building, and that's just being safe in general for the rest of us and the rest of the public as you're going through this fun project of making different pallet projects and making different content for your channels, or just going out and trying to make a profit on things. This is all things to consider to make sure that you yourself are being safe and you're keeping others safe. So I have a few different pictures. I'll probably have been showing them up to this point, or I'll show them here as well, that I have taken with my phone just as I've been out and about behind some different places procuring pallets myself. So that way you can see some different stamps on it. If it says US, it was made in the United States. If it says CA, it was made in Canada. And that just shows you the country of origin, not the state of origin. And that'll give you a lot better inkling to know exactly what types of wood it is, and the safety precautions of them going over the borders, so that way it is not, like I said earlier, bringing over any contaminations. But then also just make sure to always check to know what may have been on the pallet. A couple other little thoughts or food for thought here also is, if you do want to go through, there is a couple of links that I'm going to link below in the comment section or just in the description of the video, giving you guys a couple of different ideas on how to age wood. So like as you see with this one, this is pretty new, nice, very blonde looking wood, but if you did want to have a bit more of a rustic look and appeal to it, there's numerous videos and lots of different ways to age wood to make it look like an old distressed barn door, or to make it look the way you want it without risking the potential of it being chemically treated, or just having been through the gauntlet to where you don't even know, regardless of it not being chemically treated, what could have gotten into that wood, what could have sat on it forever, or it had been through that is now in that wood, and regardless of it being dry, once you cut it, that's now airborne, and you could potentially be breathing that, getting it in your eyes, or even on your skin. There's a couple pallets I've worked with that were not in any way oak, but they were with a pile of oak, and even though they were all dried up, it looks as though they just kind of almost melded. So when I was cutting through it, I ended up getting a little bit of sawdust on my arms that ended up breaking out into a huge rash, purely based on the fact that there was sitting some settled sawdust from an oak pallet that I didn't even touch, that now I have on my skin. Now that's just the minute sawdust of another pallet. That's not even the actual pallet itself being cut apart. And any of that, if I were to breathe it in, and with how much my body reacts to it, I could have inflammation in my lungs, and it would cause me to have hard time breathing, or it could cause anything else that could be very negative as well. If it got in my eyes, anything like that. Good things to keep in mind. Don't let this scare you or feel daunting in any regard. Make sure to be safe, but then once you're maintaining safety, you're able to just move forward. You know what you're looking for. You're now educated to know exactly if there's other people asking, or there's other people naysaying. You have a little bit more information to go on. You have a little bit better foot to stand on to know that any of the products you produce are safe and are fine to have in your home or any other person's home, or as a play set or a toy for anyone else. In this way, you're just making sure that you're putting forth the best appearance of your own company, the best know-how of yourself. You're not instilling doubt in others. You're not potentially causing a detriment to the rest of us that are enjoying and wanting to work with pallets, because there is quite a few different individuals out there that have sadly gone in ignorance and created a variety of things and tried to stand behind it, not knowing the own fallacies that they've created, something that isn't safe and something that isn't good for other people, and they themselves could potentially have some bad reprimands from that because of that kind of neglect and that non-educated standpoint where they just went into it blind. Don't feel like any of this is daunting. Make sure to just keep yourself safe, enjoy yourself, and hopefully you enjoy all the projects I'm creating, all the projects out there that everyone's creating with pallet wood. Wood is insanely expensive. Metal, therefore, as well, too, is insanely expensive. So now, even more so than ever, a reuse culture is becoming more and more apparent as just a way to even be able to create and have some of the basic necessities or basic needs and wants in life for furniture, chairs, decks, patios, any kind of awnings or buildings, anything like that that we want to create out there. It's getting way too expensive for the common person to go out and just even think of dipping their toes into the pool to try any of these projects. Because $12,000 for the tiniest deck ever on your back porch is an awesome project, but not all of us have 12 grand for a 200 square foot porch, and that's just to get the basic supplies for it. So kind of going with that mentality, thinking of all the projects you can create, seeing if you like it before you go out and spend a bunch of money on wood and lumber and material that you may not even have any inkling to use or have any desire after a few different projects to even want to continue. So pallets is a great way to go, and it's just something with a little education. Everyone can learn to have that little bit of information, and they can move forward with no thoughts, no regrets, just start pumping out whatever you want as a project. So thank you all so very much for watching. If you like the video and like the insights or have any questions or commentary, feel free to leave that below. Hit that thumbs up button, it helps me out greatly. Make sure you subscribe if you like the content you're seeing. If you really like it and want to know each time I pump out new content or just create some new video for you, just hit that notification bell and you'll get notified every time that I create a new video for you. I try to do it each week. I'm having a few things kind of happen in life, as we all do. I'm trying to create content every week, and I'm going to see if I can keep up with that. So thank you all so very much. Make sure to hit that notification bell. Have yourself a good one.